Hi, I'm Daryl Baird and welcome to my shop here in the rural wilds of northern Idaho. I mostly use clay extruders in my work, but lately I've been working more and more with rolled slabs, and more particularly I've been working on making boxes from those slabs. And one of the things that I faced was how to make a good joint as I assembled these four-sided boxes. I didn't want to use the old-fashioned, I'll use these as an illustration. I didn't want to use the old-fashioned butt joint. They're not reliable, they don't stand up to the firing in the kiln. I wanted to use instead a mitered joint like these blocks show. It's a better joint all around. It has, by my calculations, about 40% more surface area, so you just get a lot better joint made that does definitely stand up better to the firing. And the problem I faced, though, was how to make these joints reliably. I came up with what I think is a pretty simple tool, just using scrap wood here in the shop, and that's what I want to show you today. So I'm going to get set up, I'll bring it back, and I'll show it to you right now. Be right back. Well, here it is. I told you it was simple. This is nothing more than a small board that I ran through my table saw at a 45-degree angle on one end. Then I flipped it over, ran it through the table saw again, and in doing so I managed to create what is basically a 45-degree knife edge along this one side. I kept the other end square, and what you'll notice is that it has a, I'm going to turn it this way so you can see it better. It has a piece of attached wood here. This is a ruler. You may not be able to see the increments on camera, but I found a ruler here in the shop and cut it down to fit and put it on with wood screws. There's a couple reasons I did this. One, it's proven to be helpful in verifying my measurements as I go, and also what it's doing is it's distinguishing this from other scrap lumber that I have here in the shop. I didn't want to inadvertently use this for something only to find out that I had cut up my new invention. So I put that there to help me understand that this was a special piece. Also, incidentally, this is an 18-inch blade, and this one is 8 inches. Now, I had put measurements on both of these before I came up with the idea for the ruler, but the ruler is really the way to go with this. It is really proven to be handy. So there you have it. This is the, I don't have a sexy name for this yet, but maybe by the end of the program I'll come up with one, or you can tell me one. But at any rate, there it is. Now what I want to do is, now that you've seen it, and later in the program I'll show you how I actually make one, but now I'm anxious to show you how I use it. So I'll get a piece of clay. Through the magic of video, I can produce one here almost instantly. I'll get that, and then I'll put my new tool to use for you. Be right back. Getting ready, I laid out this grid of 6 precise squares. This is going to be a cube, so it has 4 sides, of course, a top and a bottom. I laid them all out together. I just scribed this with a yardstick and a needle tool, but it's important to make good, careful measurements and lines so that you get a good match set of 6 squares for assembly. So with that precaution, I was ready to use my tool, and I'll use these guidelines to help me. Now, this is essentially what the way you work this. Is I'm going to lay the tool and its edge right on the marks, right on the first line. I'll cut the long side out first. When I know I have it right there, I can lift it. I'll check it on the edge. I use a rubber mallet. You could use a regular claw hammer if you wish, but this seems to make a better mark, a better cut. So you start at the center, start your cuts along the sides. As it works, keep it straight and look down one side of the back side of your board, and make sure it's staying vertical. As it works its way through, you can tell that you've made it all the way to the bottom. Just be sure. Then ease it out. Double check. That looks pretty good. And you're ready to do the opposite side. So I'll reach forward here and I'll cut this side. Properly aligned. I'll do the same thing. pieces cut, before I started taping again, I took some time and wiped off some of the excess cornstarch so I wouldn't have to deal with that. Later on, the rest of it can be wiped away when I'm finishing the box, but for now I don't have the excess to deal with, and I can start assembly. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to show you how I dry fit these to get an idea that everything's going to go together well. Later, I'll take it apart again. I'll score and slip all the contact surfaces and put it together finally, but here I'll give you the idea of how it basically goes together. You start assembly like this, the clay will hold itself together pretty well when it's in this state. Hold everything together like this and keep bringing the sides up. Check for fit. If it seems like they're a little bit off, don't worry about that. Later on, we're going to be able to paddle it through. Well, I've set up my saw, I have the rip fence installed, and I have my blade set at a 45-degree angle. Before I get started though, it's important to emphasize the need for good eye protection as well as something to protect yourself from the dust that the saw gives off. If you don't have a vacuum-controlled dust extraction system, at a very minimum, you want to use a dust mask like this to protect your lungs. Now, the one thing I want to show is that with the original blade that I was using in the demonstrations, I cut that from a piece of 1x4" stock. After using this a little bit, I realized that I could get a little bit more control if I cut it down to where it was not quite as long, or not quite as wide, I should say. So I set up the fence to where this will cut my blade to where it's about 2.5 inches long at this point, and I think that's really going to help. Now, the saw is going to make a lot of noise when I do my cuts. I'll make my cuts, and then I'll shut everything off, and I'll show you how it looks when I'm done, and then I'll reinstall the ruler to complete the blade. So, I'll be right back. Okay, I've made my cuts. I have a little bit of touch-up to do here, I see, that I can finish with some sandpaper. But otherwise, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to put my ruler back on. And I think I have, all in all, a little bit better, a little bit more reliable tool here. And you know, what I think I'll do is I think I'll call it the miter blade. I think that's a good tool name. So I hope you'll give something like this a try. I think you'll find that your miter cuts are a lot simpler this way. If you have questions, feel free to contact me at the website that you see listed below. Thanks again.